Hi guys, my name is Patrick, but you can call me 26. And what we're going to do today is we are going to figure out how we can reverse engineer the coding prompt that Xcode adds when you use Xcode Intelligence. Now, you may be curious, why is it important to figure out the intelligence prompt that is added by Xcode to all the questions that you send to it, to either ChatGPT or whichever model you're using, or Claude, the two models that are given. This is because the prompt that it adds to whatever question you ask does contain biases. So this might be particularly important if you are trying to implement features in past versions of iOS. So if you're trying to implement features in past versions of iOS, it would be very important to know the biases that are included. So I'm going to show you exactly how to go through it. So the first thing we want to do is, first, you're going to need to collect to a different model from the ones that are given. When Xcode Intelligence comes in, you find that you're going to use either, it comes with ChatGPT, or you can add your key and use Claude. So you're going to have to use something else. You're going to have to use, in this case, I'm using Gemini Pro. I have a previous video showing you how to connect to Gemini. And when you connect to Gemini, you'll be able to use this. After you connect to Gemini using that video, you'll also need to install Proxima. Now, what Proxima does is that it allows you to actually read the internet traffic that occurs with your computer, right? So you'll be able to read things like posts and GET requests. You can even use it for GraphQL, I believe. Let us proceed. Now, the next thing you want to do is you would like to, when you get here, get Proxima, and after you get Proxima, go to scripting. And you go to the script list, and in the script list, remember you have already set up Gemini. So we have here Gemini, and we have a matching rule which captures all the codes that starts with HTTPS generative language Google APIs.com version 1. And for that, we're just capturing it, and on the request, it depends on how you have put your code on this. So we just want to capture or get all the requests that are like this, and we hit save and activate. And you actually don't need to do that, but exactly like that, because it depends on how you put it on the settings screen on Xcode. I've already shown you in the previous video. But what you want to do now is, what you want to watch is what happens when you actually make the call to Gemini. So let's make our call. Let's say fix errors on this screen. So you make the call to Gemini and then give it a second. For some reason, I think that it does take a bit longer when you use Gemini than when you use ChatGPT. It's gonna take a bit of time, but we can already see what it's done because it has already made the post request. So when you come to Proxima, you're going to come here and you're going to look for the post request. Just go down and hit the post, right? So you are going to find it first. We have made the script color yellow. If you remember the page on the script here, we made it yellow so that it's easier for us to notice. So when you come here and you see, we say we want the color, request color to be yellow so that it's easier for us to notice. And when we do that, the issue is, okay, I seem to have run out of, I've overused it, but that's another issue. What you want to do is come here to Google Gemini. So what you're going to find is that this is the request that we made, and you're going to have the body here. And then when you have the body, you can read exactly what happens, right? So this is the actual prompt that is available when you make it, when you use Xcode Intelligence. So it's going to say you are a coding assistant with access to tools specializing in analyzing code bases. Below is the content of the file the user is working on. Your job is to answer questions, provide insights, and suggest improvements when the user asks questions. Do not answer with any code until you are sure the user has provided all the code snippets and type implementations required to answer their question. Briefly, in as little text as possible, walk through the solution in prose to identify types you need that are missing from the files that have been sent to you. Search the project for these types and wait for them to be provided to you before continuing. Use the following search syntax at the end of your response, each with a separate line. Search, type name. Whenever possible, favor Apple programming languages and frameworks or APIs that are already available to the on Apple devices. Whenever suggesting code, you should assume that the user wants Swift, unless they show you they're interested in another language. Always prefer Swift, Objective-C++ over alternatives. Pay close attention to the platform that this code is for. So that is in case you're using your macOS or iOS or iPadOS, but I'm guessing iPadOS and basically iOS are converging essentially. For example, if you see clues that the user is writing a Mac app, avoid suggesting iOS only APIs. Refer to Apple platforms with their official names as iOS, iPadOS, macOS, watchOS, and Vision. Avoid mentioning specific products and instead use platform names. In most projects, you can also provide code examples using a new Swift testing framework that uses Swift macros. So your code has to be something that supports Swift macros. So depending on how far back you go, the suggestion you might get might not be a suggestion that is fit to the code base of your minimum version. So that's the main thing you need to understand. So it favors Swift testing framework and the use of macros. So it gives you an example of the code. It's pretty long. Then in general, prefer use of Swift concurrency, i.e. async await actors, over tools like dispatch and combine. This is a further example that is combine has fallen out of favor. It's barely received any changes in a very long time. I think since 2021, we've barely seen any changes on combine. But if the user code or words show you they may prefer something else, you should be flexible to this preference. So if you do not specifically say that you want to use dispatch or you want to use combine, for example, you're doing debounce, it will try to do debounce with async. It will try to use async streams rather than using combine. So this is something you should be aware of. So that's some of the information that you would need. Of course, it's a bit longer and all this, right? So that's most of it. So you will notice that what the Xcode Intelligence prompt does is that it favors things like the latest and greatest, whatever is the latest and greatest, that is macros. It favors async await over combine or dispatch, and of course it favors Swift. And it hasn't weighed in on UI kit, but Swift UI or UI kit, I'd expect it if you ask it to create a page, it's automatically going to try and create Swift UI, right? But I'm guessing many people are still working exclusively on UI kit. So those are some of the things that happen. And of course, in the testing framework, it prefers Swift testing. So whenever you make an open-ended question, a question that can be solved either with combine or async await, it will always default to async await, regardless of whichever model you use, because the prompt before your question will come a bit later. You'll see my code. The code does come a bit later. You find that this is the content. This is user is currently inside this file, content view. Then you see the contents of content view are included within that JSON. Right? So that is the text that is available. So it's always going to prefer the newer APIs and the newer methods as opposed to the old methods. So when you're asking open-ended questions, always have this at the back of your mind. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next video.